Hello everybody and welcome to episode 61 of the Pentagon Challenge. You must be wondering why I'm using a misleading thumbnail for this episode, and the answer is pretty simple. I was desperate to leave Shenhua after not being able to qualify for the Champions League proper. The third place was not enough, as Rennes were the FA Cup winners last year, and that means I have no Champions League football, and I wanted to try and find a club where I could possibly get as far as possible in that tournament. And a big job came up just after the season ended, when Graham Arnold resigned from Sydney FC and decided to take over the Japan national team. And I decided I'm going to apply for the Sydney FC job. I made sure I made a backup save just in case, and on 2 attempts I basically tried to simulate forward and get the interview from Sydney FC. And the first time I was still with Shenhua, so when they asked we'd like you to take over, they said they couldn't pay my compensation. So I went to the Shenhua board and said, please give me the opportunity to talk to Sydney, and they said no. So that meant the job was lost. So then I went back to the reload and said I'm going to resign immediately and apply for this job the moment it has appeared. And I got the interview, it went well, but then Goran Lozanovsky, an assistant manager at Adelaide United, was actually picked ahead of me, which is absolutely shocking in my opinion. Like, he must have something going for him, but like, to have picked a former assistant manager where he's only won a few trophies in lower leagues in Australia, such as the 2007 National Premier League with Preston Lions, and he also won the same trophy with a different club. I just thought it was a no-brainer to pick me, but then again I was lucky to get the Shenhua job, and I can't really, claim double standards, because there's no way I should have got that job, and I was given it and I've made it work. So to not get the Sydney FC job was a blow, but it's meant that I've decided to play Shenhua again anyway and try and regain that CSL title that was taken by Guangzhou. So anyway, Goran Lozanovsky, no matter what happens, he seems to get the job ahead of anybody else, and they took a very long time to pick him. So I don't know if it's a new thing in this game where the decision to sack the manager and then bring in a successor takes nearly 2 months, like 51 days to decide on a new manager. That's absolutely insane. It's usually like a 14 to 21 days thing, but for some reason Sydney just insisted on waiting and waiting until the opportunity to hire this man came up. So I don't know if you've ever noticed it yourself, guys, but as you can see, Sydney are doing quite well now. They're 4th in the A-League on a winning streak, and as far as I'm aware they're in a cup final, but they lost it on penalties. So that would have been where I would have been able to make a debut with the club if I got the job, but it wasn't to be. But now they're in a great run of form, and they're not going to be able to take me on. So any other jobs that come up that are of interest to me, I'm going to apply for them and see what happens. But the country I'd love to go to managing the most is South Korea, because they have some fabulous clubs such as FC Seoul. They're defending the Champions League this season, as far as I'm aware. There they are, look, Group G. They won the title last season, and it was against Al Hilal of Saudi Arabia. They won in the two-legged affair, 4-2 in aggregate. So a club like that would be magnificent to get to, but at the minute China doesn't seem to be at all good. Look at China in 8th place, below Japan, Kuwait, Iran and Qatar as non-playable leagues, as well as Saudi Arabia. So the Chinese football is a long way to go if it's going to get the respect it deserves, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it in the time limit desired. So if any of these massive jobs come up in the K-League, then that's where I'd love to go. I've never played in the K-League, and I think the opportunity to do so would be very, very wise in my opinion. So anyway, enough about other clubs. Let's go back to Shanghai Shenhua and talk about pre-season and the transfers we've made to make sure this season will not involve heartbreak or anything like that. To start things off, we're still predicted to finish 5th, which is insane, but the good news is that the game recognises our achievements over the last couple of years, and we are now the second most reputable club in the country, but not like Guangzhou. They have an extra star or half star of reputation, but the likes of Shanghai, Beijing and Shandong are all tied with us. So there's all sorts of competition in the Chinese Super League. It's getting off to a start today with the likes of these fixtures, but now let's just look at pre-season. It was pretty handy, nothing too difficult about it, but the one thing to talk about was we went to Portugal for a training camp, and we won all but one of the games. We were destroyed by these Oriental players. They were fabulous, and they're in the national championship. Not very good league, to be honest, but we were beaten, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. But, we are certainly goal hungry, and that's what I expect when we play Chongqing, who are now promoted back to the league after one season relegated. So we need to win that game at home. Then we've got Guangzhou at home. We must win that if we're going to stand any chance of winning the title, because head to head was very relevant last year, even though Guangzhou ran away with it. We've got the other promoted team, Huaxinfu, coming up, and then a grudge match with Renhe will be coming up there. Then you've Shanghai, Beijing and Shandong all in short supply there, so that's going to be a very difficult end to the season. And then the FA Cup will be sometime in July. So now let's take a look at transfers, see what I've been up to. So let's just talk about those who have departed. It was a big clean out, is why I wanted to leave, because I thought a new manager would do a good job of cleaning out. But then when I simulated, they sold the likes of the goalkeeper Dujia, they sold one of my young midfielders, and they sold someone else I don't remember. So I felt, right, that manager is clueless, I better stay and avoid the clean out, taking some of those players. So Zhang Xinglin has left for another club. He wasn't very good anyway. He was a servant though, so I didn't want to disrespect him. Sun Yonggang I thought would be a good signing, but it turned out he wasn't going to get the time on the pitch he needed. Qi Yonglong has also left on loan, as well as Wu Zi and Luan Xiaobin, the other goalkeeper I have. But the big news was Daniel Moreno. His demand to leave the club was met. I decided I'm going to let him go, but I want the close enough to the profit margin as possible. But Talares, what are they called? Talares de Cordoba, or Cordoba, bid 1.8 million, and I couldn't turn it down. It was a reasonably good offer, but as you can see, they're not using him at all, and he's already upset. So I just don't understand the logic of some of these players begging to go, and then they go to a club that is nowhere suitable at all for them. But these guys are in 20th position now, but the Argentinian system is really unusual if you're not used to it, so I won't go into too much detail. But either way, Moreno was not happy about his move, and I can't say I have any sympathy for him. He should have stayed, which I'm sure he would have been happy here. And then he had another year left in his contract, so if he wanted to leave, he should have seen it out. But anyway, I'm not going to complain anymore. And then one player that I wanted to sell, but he wouldn't go because his wages are too high. It's Vladan Karadzic, the captain, now demoted from that role. I decided, look, you don't want to be here anymore, that's alright, but his wages are significantly high, and no matter what I did, nobody was going to buy him. Even when I offered to selling team wage contribution, when I set all the way up here, still nobody wanted him. The only team that showed a serious interest was Changchun, but they never tabled a bid, even though he would have been a free transfer to them. They just decided not to buy him. So if I had have sold him, I would have had another foreigner slot free, and I could have bought a really handy player for the future. But Vladan Karadzic will play some football this year, but he's no longer the captain as a result of his desire to leave. And we've a few players out injured and suspended for this game, such as Peng Changming and Natutuko Radabi, so that's awfully upsetting. But now, okay, it's been ages, I'm really going to have to cop on and talk about my free signings. So this guy was brought in by the director of football. I don't have a clue why, but he will hopefully play for the reserve team and bag a few goals in the year that he's here, but I don't really care about him. The first proper signing now is Wu Xinghan. He can play in all positions like Ziyang can or Wang Zihao can, so he can certainly uses experience to unnerve a few defences, and he's a replacement for the now retired what's his name, Zheng Long. I think Zheng Long has retired, so he'll replace him on the left hand side. He knows how to score tons and tons of goals in this league, such as 16 this season in 2020, and then 2023 last year he scored 11 times, so he could be a really useful free transfer. And then Kwanzyan, I decided to raid them knowing that they had been relegated, and their young Macedonian star Filip Jovanovski, I tabled a 2.3 million euros bid, a bit expensive, but I felt it was a very, very tempting offer, as he's already used to playing in China, so he mightn't cause a fuss and say I want to leave, and I can just trigger a contract clause whenever I like if he doesn't want to stay. So for 2.3 million euros, that's a pretty good deal, and he doesn't ask for too much money, but we have him trained up as an attacking midfielder as well, which is really useful, so he could be a star of the future, and maybe, just maybe, the Macedonian team will cap him and make him somewhat handy in the global stage. Look at Remy Gard, his career certainly tanked, but let's just see if he can do a good job now. Xiao Bin, another Kwanzyan player, he's only 24 and he can play anywhere on the right hand side, but he will be deployed as another right midfielder if so desired. He had a very good season last year with 7 assists and 3 goals. That could prove very, very handy, but he has a pretty imbalanced career. He's been all over the place, such as Shandong and Beijing. Well, Kwanzyan relegated, it was just so easy to negotiate a fee from, and I used my director of football to get that one. Another cheap deal, I needed a new left back, and Wang Shengchao at 35 years of age, he replaces Zhang Xinglin, and he could be a good player, but he has plenty of experience. He's been champion before, I'd say, with the likes of Shandong, and then Fully gave him a very distinctive career. Look at 7.57 there, 7.04, and so on and so forth. But he's definitely declining, and I just hope he has one more year left in him, if at all possible. So he's won a lot of trophies in his time, and he could be very, very prestigious to us if he uses that experience to guide us along the path to the title. And then I went hunting for an Asian player, as Daniel Mullen had retired, and my solution is Khaled Mohammed Ibrahim from Kuwait. And before you say, oh, he's not very useful at all, well, there's the evidence to the contrary. He is a Champions League winner as of the year 2022, and even though he lost his place in the Kadzia team, he has been a stalwart for them, even though the league hasn't been loaded. He's won all sorts of things with Kadzia, and I felt he was a very cheap deal to get. He's absolutely phenomenal for Kadzia, and with the new challenge here in China, he could be a very, very good player. And judging by his pre-season, he could even score a bag of goals. He's been fantastic, and I hope to see more of that later. And then another free transfer for centre defence is Lee Song-yi. He's been capped 41 times for his country, and he can play in defensive midfield as well, which could come in handy. But with Guangzhou playing him nearly every game last year, he is a defending champion, and that could give us the momentum we need to reclaim glory as champions of China. But the one thing he hasn't done is he's lost the FA Cup twice, so I think that'll give him enough momentum and motivation to give us whatever energy he has left at 31 years of age, and he could be a fantastic player in the years to come. But anyway, let's just head into a condensed live comm against Chongqing, and with this team I hope we can get the job done. Most of the players are ready to go, but I've decided to play Gao Zunyi in centred back as opposed to my new signing Song Yi. I have other guys on the bench here, such as Su Hong. I may as well talk about him from the youth academy. He could be the star of the future, with the likes of 15 passing, 9 tackling is alright, 16 natural fitness, 13 vision, 13 leadership, and 16 aggression. He could be a deep line playmaker to die for, but we'll see how he develops in the years to come. And then most of my other players are raring to go off the bench, So we'll see how we get on in this live com. And kickoff is now here. Bear in mind that we've lost the opening games of the last 2 seasons, and 3 points are not to be taken for granted here. We have to get the result against the newly promoted team. Already we've got a corner kick, and it's Li Shenglong providing the last line of defence, clearing the ball off the 6-yard box. And now the counter-attack is available. Geng Zonglin just needs to look up. Our master assistant of last year, and Yang Kuo hits the keeper from point blank range. That should have been 1-0. Georgievsky clears. Chao Sheng, that was from behind. The referee thinks no foul. Given away again by Shenhua, and that's a chance. Crossbar struck, and a terrible clearance falls to Yu Hang, and Chongqing are 1-0 to the good, and that is very poor. We are absolutely conquering them. We just cannot score. We're bottom of the league now, as Shanghai have taken a 2-1 lead. There we are. It's bottom of the league time for Shanghai Shenhua, unless we equalise here and now. Wang Zihao is onside, and that's the difference maker. Shenglong can consider himself dropped for the time being. It's a first touch, first goal scenario from Wang Zihao. And we'll see if our wingers can deliver another good ball to Wang Zihao, who suddenly finds himself starting a game. I could have sold him in the winter, which would have been a terrible decision in hindsight. Oh no! Yang Zifei will be sent off for that, and I don't think my substitution has been validated. Oh no, it hasn't. It has not been validated. So Li Chao will be raging. He won't get to play now. So Su Hong gets to become a debutant. He's not the greatest ball-winning midfielder in the world, but actually I think we'll let him be the deep-lying playmaker. We are 10th in the league now, but the majority of our rivals have won today. We'll have to watch out for another unlikely hero. Like Renhe were brilliant last season, and we want to make sure no one else can match those standards. 88 minutes have now passed. Su Hong dribbling, goes for goal again. No need for that, my friend. So discipline needed. It's Geng Zonglin out to the far post, and good job by the keeper. He was again, just like Duji, in the right place at the right time. Ibrahim to Shen Chao. Su Hong to Zihao. Again, not so good. We're out of time. Yeah, 5 seconds to go. Get it up the pitch. No, too late. It's 1-1 at full time, and that's it's not a loss. So 1 point more than we had last year, but it just means our home record could be in jeopardy. We're so good at home, but we didn't prove it this afternoon, and we'll just have to play Bei Kong in our next match and get the 3 points there. So I'd rather not discuss Yang Zifei's contribution, but either way, that was a very winnable tie. And Sheng Long, usually he's reliable, but today he was way off the standard I expect. So that's a look at the league table. Shangang, Shandong, Fuli, Guangzhou and Jiangsu are your top 5 teams. We are very much mid-table, but the promoted sides, Huaxia Xing, Lin or Xingfu, and then of course our opponents today, Chongqing, have played, and they haven't done so well. But anyway, we'll move on now to the next episode. If I don't find any other jobs between now and the end of the season, and we'll just keep going, try and win the Super League. But the game I'd like to play next for you, I'd say the derby against Hangzhou. That's always an interesting affair. So we'll play them at the end of April in 50 days time, see how we get on, and I hope you enjoyed. Sorry for the rambling. I just want to get as much information out as possible, and we'll see you for that next live com, which will be in full. Bye now, everybody.